Alright, so this is SCP-5031, submitted by Izzy. Thank you, Izzy. So it says, Note, file under review. This document has been flagged for possible methodological issues. Please be aware that the following information is subject to change and may contain inaccuracies. So, item number SCP-5031, object class Keter, special containment procedures. SCP-5031 is to be contained in an airtight iron cell in Biosite 59. The structure must be inspected for imperfections on a bi-weekly basis. No other interactions necessary. Yeah, that's true. I suppose that does mean we can do this again. We'll see though. Yeah, I think you did 9. Thank you. Okay, description. SCP-5031 is a non-sapient quasi-humanoid creature of unknown origin. When directly observed, SCP-5031 will temporarily cease to exist until the viewer stops observing the space that SCP-5031 formerly occupied. Traces of its existence, e.g., scratch marks, blood trails, continue to exist when SCP-5031 does not. Video and photography devices do not capture SCP-5031's appearance. However, observing SCP-5031's shadow does not cause cessation of existence, allowing certain psychological traits to be inferred from its silhouette. Abnormally small head with no discernible neck. Elbows branch into 3 sets of lower arms each. Elongated torso approximately 1.9 meters in length. Pelvis terminates in a crescent-shaped protrusion of osseous tissue with a blade-like lower edge. Levitates above the ground at a fixed height of 0.5 meters. While SCP-5031 has no nutritional needs, it will nevertheless hunt and consume any human or animal it encounters by using its pendulous lower body to down targets. SCP-5031 does not sleep and is incapable of expression or verbal communication. Oh, thank you, JC. Hope you sleep well. This one starts a bit like most deadly SCPs, but it gets very wholesome by the end. Okay, I was about to say. Go to bed, Mana. Okay, addendum. As of February 14th, 2018, senior researcher Stanley Huxtable is now acting in the role of HCL supervisor for SCP-5031. The following is a selection of relevant correspondences from S.R. Huxtable to site director Yusuf Mostofi, elucidating research progress. Initial impressions. I have no idea who wrote this, but there's a lot I'd like to say to them. I'm not a fan of abandoning a living creature inside a metal box for 10 years, no matter how pragmatic it may be. It's difficult to fathom that such things were considered the norm a decade ago. Have you ever heard something scream from behind 10 inches of iron for hours on end? When I do my redraft, remind me to add anomalous resistance to hoarseness somewhere in the description. Could you work your magic and get the boys to retrofit the containment cube with an aperture and security vestibule? I'd like to run some tests that require exposing SCP-5031 to certain stimuli. March 8th, 2018. Round 1 tests. Sound. Summary. Forward. Installed speakers in the containment vestibule. and played various albums of natural ambience and popular music. SCP-5031's propensity for screaming worked as a convenient way to measure its stress levels. 100% would be considered its typical screaming volume and duration over 48 hours, and 0% would be no screaming at all. Morning forest ambience 43%, seaside paradise ambience 48%, deep grotto ambience 62%, the best of Mozart 13%, the best of Enya 18%, the best of Ben Folds 6%, the best of Jethro Tull 59%, and the best of Kiss 23%. Afterward, efficiency of music for stress reduction. No, not efficiency. Efficacy of music for stress reduction gradually decreases over time. I've assembled a playlist of SCP-5031's favorite music to play on shuffle in its enclosure in perpetuity. Stress levels consistently remain in the 15 to 25% range, baseline adjusted accordingly. Also, chat, do keep in mind, I definitely will pronounce things wrong. March 22nd, 2018, Round 2. Play Summary. Threw softball into enclosure. SCP-5031 sliced the ball in two. Tossed basketball into enclosure. SCP-5031 sliced the ball open. Rolled a bowling ball into enclosure. SCP-5031 scratched a couple of grooves into the ball, then rolled the ball around the enclosure with the blunt end of its tail for 20 minutes. Stress levels remained less than 60% after play. Rolled another bowling ball into enclosure. SCP-5031 used the blunt end of its tail to hit the balls together for a while. Stress levels remained below 40% after play. Bowling ball chipped and would no longer roll properly, unplanned. Stress levels increased to about 115%. Replacement bowling ball provided. Stress levels fell back to about 40%. Tossed basketball into enclosure. SCP-5031 picked up and played with ball. Stress levels remained under 20% after play. I don't think I actually know this one. Afterward, SCP-5031 began to use its hands to play with the basketball, possibly to avoid accidentally damaging it. Motor skill comparable to that of a toddler. SCP-5031 still prefers bowling balls or kicking. May 4th, 2018. Round 3 tests. Food. Forward. SCP-5031 was given the choice between two potential food sources placed at opposite ends of the enclosure. Human corpse versus a pig carcass. Selection: pig carcass. Pig carcass versus chicken carcass. Selection: pig carcass. Pig carcass versus rotisserie chicken. Selection: rotisserie chicken. Chicken carcass versus rotisserie chicken. Selection: rotisserie chicken. Live chicken versus rotisserie chicken. Rotisserie chicken. Roasted turkey versus rotisserie chicken. Selection: neither. Presumed sated. Afterward, while it's true that SCP-5031 doesn't necessarily need to eat, feeding it regularly has caused a marked decrease in average stress levels. Stress reduction seems to scale proportionally with the quality of food provided. Also note is that SCP-5031 prefers to use its tail to pry and cut meat into bite-sized portions rather than rip the meat into chunks with its teeth or hands. December 4th, 2018. Round 4 tests. Coexistence. Test 1. SCP-5031, fed until sated. Live subject, common chicken, introducing the enclosure. Result: SCP-5031 observed subject from a distance for several minutes, and then rolled a bowling ball towards subject at high speed. Subject was killed instantly. SCP-5031's stress level rose immediately and drastically. Test 2. Bowling balls removed from enclosure. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, common chicken, introduced to enclosure. Result: SCP-5031 gently rolled a basketball towards subject. Ball hit subject lightly. Subject responded with a small cry and moved away. SCP-5031 did not engage with subject any further. Test 3. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, Class D, blindfolded, introduced to enclosure, and instructed to sit and roll basketball forward, then wait until it came back and roll it away again. Result: subject and SCP-5031 successfully rolled the ball back and forth for several minutes. SCP-5031 eventually abandoned the activity and approached the subject. Per safety protocol, subject removed their blindfold to terminate the activity. Test 4. SCP-5031 fed until sated. Live subject, Class D, introduced to the enclosure and instructed to toss a tennis ball at the wall, let it ricochet behind them, then catch and repeat. Result: SCP-5031 stood behind subject and successfully engaged in game of catch, mimicking subject's action of letting ball ricochet against the wall. Afterward, SCP-5031's motor skills appeared to be rapidly improving. Sorry, that was done April 12th, not December. Okay. May 16th, 2018. Round 5 tests. Symbols. Forward. 5 LCD displays were fitted into the wall of SCP-5031's enclosure, each with a lit button and a food dispenser underneath. Test 1. 2 stations activated. Screen 1 displayed the image of a rock. Its button dispensed rocks. Screen 2 displayed the image of a rotisserie chicken. Its button dispensed pieces of chicken. Result: SCP-5031 poked at the image of a chicken for a few minutes and eventually hit the button. Chicken was dispensed until SCP-5031 was satisfied. Test 2. Screen displays and the materials dispensed were swapped. Result: SCP-5031 hit the button it had hit the previous day and received a rock. It then went to the other screen and hit the button to dispense chicken. Test 3. Screen displays and materials dispensed were swapped back to their original positions and set to swap again at random intervals after first distribution. Result: SCP-5031 went directly to the button next to the image of a chicken. Experienced apparent confusion after the first mid-distribution swap, but quickly learned to watch the images. Test 4. 3 more stations, screen, buttons, dispensers, were activated. 4 stations displayed the word rock and dispensed rocks. 1 station displayed the word chicken and dispensed chicken. Arrangement set to change randomly several times over the following days. Result: through trial and error, SCP-5031 determined which station dispensed chicken. SCP-5031 subsequently went to the station marked chicken whenever displays were swapped. Test 5. All stations deactivated except one. The screen displayed the word chicken. 7 wood blocks were set in front of the station, each marked with one of the letters in the word chicken. The station's button was set to remain unlit and inactive until the blocks are arranged in the correct order. Result: SCP-5031 expressed apparent frustration, hitting the inactive button repeatedly and striking the wall with its tail. Test 6. Same as previous tests, but screen displayed the word chicken with each letter overlaid on a photo of a wooden block. Result: after 12 minutes, SCP-5031 successfully assembled the word chicken. Afterward, it can learn language, Yusuf. Aaron, thank you for the follow, and welcome to the friendly, shark-infested waters. August 29th, 2018. Round 6. Tests. Vocabulary. Forward. SCP-5031 has learned to use blocks to form the following words. Foods: chicken, turkey, pork, tofu, beef, bread, more salt, more pepper, more cooked. Music. Mozart, Enya, Ben Folds, Forest, Seaside, White Noise, more volume, less volume, silence. Play. Basketball, bowling ball, tennis ball, cat, dog, human, Robert to the power of 2, Stanley, alone. Afterward. Through its increased vocabulary and human interaction, SCP-5031 has made the following progress. Established food preferences and dish pairings. Learned to sing non-verbally. Learned to juggle. 6-handed juggling is something to behold. October 5th, 2018. Round 7 tests. Activities. Test 1. Introduce table, paper, and crayons into the enclosure. Live subject D52125 instructed to demonstrate drawing for SCP-5031. Result: SCP-5031 learned to draw. Discernible subjects depicted in its artworks include D-52125, SCP-5031, a rotisserie chicken, a cat, and myself. Test 2. Introduce piano into the enclosure. Live subject D-52125 instructed to play chopsticks blindfolded and invite SCP-5031 to play along. Subject had time to practice beforehand. Result: SCP-5031 learned chopsticks in 2 days. Though it appeared more interested in making its own original music, complete with vocals, these compositions might be considered crude by human standards. Test 3. Introduced spice racks into the enclosure. Live subject D-52125 instructed to demonstrate seasoning meats. Result: SCP-5031 spent almost 3 days straight experimenting with different combinations of food and spices. SCP-5031 assembled the words more with its letter blocks after running out of garlic powder. Afterward, SCP-5031 only engages with art and music when accompanied by D-52125, but it continues to be preoccupied with food preparation even when alone. That's really cute. January 4th, 2019. Round 8 tests. Cooking. Results. Forward. Basic kitchen utilities installed in enclosure. Live subject D-52125 instructed to demonstrate preparation of various recipes. Recipes learned: quesadilla, taco, hamburger, fried rice, Mongolian beef, spicy chicken curry, chocolate chip cookies, sponge cake with buttercream, fudge, clam chowder, steak, macaroons, chicken adobo, smoked salmon, profiteroles. Afterward, SCP-5031 has a severe peanut allergy. This should be included in the revised containment procedures. I would also like to note that SCP-5031 is now a better chef than the average human, and it has begun to create its own recipes. D-52125 has volunteered to taste tests. June 30th, 2019. Update. SCP-5031 has said its first word. Salt. We are all immensely proud. November 29th, 2019. Final test. Summary. SCP-5031 was given 2 months to develop a 3-course meal to serve at the Biosite 59 cafeteria for personnel working over Thanksgiving. Its selections were as follows. First course, sweet potato, turmeric, miso soup. Second course, duck confit with apple cider glaze and cranberry compote topping, paired with butternut squash gnocchi. I don't actually know how to pronounce that word. On a bed of kale seasoned with truffle salt. Third course, a slice of spiced cassava pie topped with French vanilla ice cream and a maple hazelnut syrup. SCP-5031 also debuted its original composition, Piano Sonata for 6 Hands, in a live performance broadcast from its enclosure. Personnel response was overwhelmingly positive. SCP-5031 stress levels at 0%. Testing successfully concluded. Revised documentation submitted for approval. Okay, what is this SCP's nickname? Not its SCP number, but its nickname. Because I do not recall watching any videos about this one, but I quite like it. Just another monster or something? Wow, I think it's more than that. Yet another murder monster. Wow, they definitely misnamed that one. What a shame. I think this one's rather precious. I wonder what it looks like. Well, yeah, I figured. Um, Perhaps if somebody would like to do me a favor and, well, actually, it deconstructed the cliche killer SCPs that are really popular. Oh, understand. A nice monster like Peanut. Well, honey, I don't know about Peanut being a nice monster, but sure. Perhaps either here or on the main account. Maybe we'll just rewatch some videos for the SCPs that we're reading today. I was actually thinking of doing it like in between, possibly, but no. Depending on how long it takes me to read everything, possibly after. If not, maybe after the Destiny 2 grind tomorrow. SCP explained vids tend to average out at around 15 minutes. Is that the channel that I watch? Let me see. Yeah, the channel that I normally watch is SCP Explained Story and Animation. I'll have to put something together later. Oh, whoops. It's been very relaxing, thanks. You'll lay it down? Okay. Good night, JC. I'm glad it was. Sleep well and sweet dreams. And thank you for stopping by. Okay, so the next one here is SCP-1230. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Should I read the crossed out part or no? You ready, posture check? Stretch and hydrate. Hello, Void. Good for context. Okay. Good point. So, Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1230 is to be kept in a secure storage locker at Site-12. Access requires minimum Clearance 2, with authorization and supervision by Clearance 3 research and security staff, respectively. Supervising personnel are not to view SCP-1230's contents. Personnel accessing SCP-1230 are required to submit written accounts of dreams experienced within 48 hours of access. See Addendum 1230-A. By the way, am I saying that correctly? Addendum? Anyways, SCP-1230 has been relocated to a secure storage locker behind the desk of Site-12's main library. Access is available to Clearance 2 personnel deemed to be in satisfactory psychological condition by Site psychiatric staff. Personnel accessing SCP-1230 must submit written accounts of their dreams within 48 hours of access and submit to follow-up psychological examination. Description: SCP-1230 is an unlabeled green hardcover book with no apparent exceptional qualities. When SCP-1230 is opened, it displays the phrase, "A hero is born," on the first page viewed, while other pages will be blank, resetting once the book is closed. This has no obvious effects at first, but upon falling asleep, the reader will dream of a fantasy world where they are the protagonists of a troubled land. Dreamers are completely aware and all senses work just as well as when awake. Results vary depending on the imagination of the reader and are mostly attuned to fantasies of adventure that the reader would enjoy. In the mind of the reader, these dreams have been documented to last anywhere from 45 seconds, see Experiment 1230-3, to 200 years, see Experiment 1230-5, but in reality, the reader will usually never be asleep longer than they would normally. Upon awakening, the reader is able to remember every aspect of their dream in detail. In SCP-1230 induced dreams, there is always a character called the Bookkeeper, SCP-1230-1, appearing as a bearded man in a green cloak who claims to be the personification of SCP-1230 himself. SCP-1230-1 has been reported to be very amicable and helpful towards dreamers. It has stated that it enjoys creating these fantasyscapes and always tries to shape them in such a way that the dreamer garners the most entertainment out of it. It has expressed sorrow when the dream comes to an end and asks the dreamer to please visit again soon. Discovery: in a small bookstore located, data expunged, the shopkeeper has no recollection of owning the unlabeled book, but attempted to sell a story to local newspapers about a magical dream book. The Foundation was able to dispel the story as a hoax, and SCP-1230 was confiscated. Experiment 1230-01. Dr. F, in an attempt to test its effective range, opened SCP-1230 and boarded a flight to his hometown of Redacted, where he spent the night at a hotel. Upon his return, Dr. F reported that SCP-1230-1 appeared in his dreams and explained that once you read "A Hero is Born," the dream is immediately implanted into your subconscious, after which SCP-1230-1 is able to manipulate it remotely. Dr. F expressed his appreciation for SCP-1230-1's cooperation. Experiment 1230-02. A camera was set up above SCP-1230, and, using a mechanical arm, the book was opened. All pages were revealed to be blank. It seems SCP-1230 is only effective when opened by beings that are able to have dreams. SCP-1230-1 explained to his subsequent dreamer that it is actually only able to affect beings with an imagination, and that most creatures, such as animals, would not be affected. Experiment 1230-03. 1. D-Class was instructed to open the book and, after much reassurance that his experience would only be dreams, ordered to immediately find a way to kill himself in the dream. The subject was asleep for merely 45 seconds before he awoke with a start and a nervous sweat. He reported being at the summit of a volcano called the Ashen Spire, on a quest for Calidus, the Blessed Blade. When asked how the subject knew the names, he stated, "It's like I knew them all along." He apparently leapt into the volcano and felt an immense heat before awakening. D class requested permission to give it another go. Request was denied. Experiment 1230-04. 1. D class was instructed to open the book and attempt to non-fatally injure himself in his dream. After 6 hours, the D class awoke and reported that he was able to feel a numbed sort of pain where it was never so intense as to be unbearable. He also reported meeting an elderly, cloaked man who asked him why he was harming himself, but thanked him for not immediately killing himself, like that other rude fellow. Experiment 1230-05. Professor B filled a request for access to SCP-1230 and was quickly permitted given his level 4 clearance. Staff members recalled that Professor B was almost visibly shaking with excitement, and some reported that Professor B was an avid fan of tabletop and role-playing games. Surveillance shows that Professor B opened the book, read the phrase, sat down behind the desk, and promptly fell asleep. Staff members were alarmed when Professor B did not awake after 15 hours and alerted security. The on-site medical staff was able to confirm that Professor B was still alive and in good health. After approximately 24 hours since falling asleep, Professor B began to move, reported to have slowly raised his head and looked around the room, apparently appearing deeply confused. Security entered the room to ensure he was all right, to which he replied, "Where am I?" He was sent to medical, where staff explained where and who he was. Several minutes later, Professor B appeared to have regained his memory and excused himself to the restroom. When 15 minutes passed and Professor B had not exited, a nurse entered to find he had hanged himself with his belt. A scribbled message on the wall revealed his last words. "I can't go back to this." Dr. F went to ask SCP-1230-1 what had happened, but upon opening SCP-1230, all its pages were soaking wet with the same message on every page. "I'm so sorry. I never intended for this to happen. I just wanted to make people happy." Repeated over and over. SCP-1230 remained in the state for 3 weeks and its desk had to be wiped dry bi-weekly. In an attempt to communicate, Dr. F placed a sticky note inside SCP-1230 with a statement, "I'd like to talk to you, if that's all right." The next morning, Dr. F filed a report about a dream he had concerning SCP-1230-1. Shortly after the report was filed, surveillance showed Dr. F slipping another small paper into SCP-1230. A few days later, SCP-1230 began showing its usual "A hero is born" greeting once again. When asked what the note said, Dr. F declined to give detailed comment, simply saying that he just gave it some friendly advice. Addendum 1230-A. During initial testing, SCP-1230-1 asked streaming personnel if it could be relocated to an area with many books, preferably fiction, so that it could think of even better ways to construct its fantasy-scapes. After numerous experiments were performed to ensure that SCP-1230 posed no threat, the request was accepted and SCP-1230 has been relocated to Site-12's library. I think this one is really cute. This is report 1230-14. Upon falling asleep last night, I dreamt I was in a dark void. There was a street lamp, and underneath it was SCP-1230-1, sitting in a puddle. His cloak was visibly soaked, and he was sobbing profusely. I remember our conversation. Dr. F. Bookkeeper? Is that you? My God. Man, where are we? Bookkeeper, between sobs. I couldn't think of anything to make for a landscape. Dr. F. Bookkeeper, what happened that day? Why did Professor B kill himself? We have to know your side of the story. Bookkeeper, wiping his eyes. He had such an active imagination. I was able to create a vast and beautiful universe for him, and it was obvious that he had wanted a life like that for so long. He conquered foul beasts and rescued princesses. He built kingdoms and even raised a family. But he never wanted to leave. He delved so far into his fantasy world that I soon realized he preferred his dream over the real world. I reminded him that this was all merely an illusion, but he wouldn't listen to me. He stated that if he was ever forced to leave, he would immediately end his life. I tried to keep him happy for as long as I could. Dr. F. Bookkeeper. How long was the dream from his point of view? Bookkeeper. 200 years, Doctor. I did my best, but I could only hold on to him for 200 years. As sweet as dreams may be, eventually we all have to wake up. I awoke almost immediately after. I can't believe he spent 200 years in his dream. I'm astounded by his foolishness, but it's such a shame to have lost a brilliant mind to his own delusions. Oh, that part was quite sad, but I can understand. I would like to read SCP-1230 and see what my fantasy would actually be like. Now, this is actually one of my personal favorites. Oh yes. SCP-1762. Object Class. Neutralized. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1762-1 is held in a standard containment unit at Site Redacted. During the periods when SCP-1762-1 releases SCP-1762-2, video logs are to be recorded for future research. Although instances of SCP-1762-2 have been deemed harmless, they should not be allowed to exit their containment unit. Description: SCP-1762-1 is a plain cardboard box that is 32 centimeters by 20 centimeters by 26 centimeters. It is spray painted silver on the interior and exterior, and the words "Here be dragons" are handwritten in black permanent marker on the lid of the container. Opening the lid of SCP-1762-1 when it is not in the process of a release reveals it to be empty. SCP-1762 will infrequently open and initiate a release of SCP-1762-2. During this time, the box will briefly emit a large amount of black smoke that quickly dissipates. It takes an average of 20 seconds for SCP-1762-2 to emerge after the smoke clears. SCP-1762-2 is a collective term applied to the beings that emerge from SCP-1762-1. All instances of SCP-1762-2 bear resemblance to various types of dragons in both Eastern and Western depictions, albeit in forms similar to that of origami models. Analysis of SCP-1762-2 reveals that they are composed of kami paper. After exiting SCP-1762-1, instances of SCP-1762-2 will fly together in large groups and interact playfully with any nearby personnel and each other. SCP-1762-2 vary in length from 9 to 30 centimeters. All are capable of sustained flight once they exit SCP-1762-1 and have been recorded attaining speeds of 15 kilometers an hour. The number of SCP-1762-2 varies with each opening of SCP-1762-1, with numbers ranging from 50 to over 400. After approximately 2 to 3 hours of time spent outside of SCP-1762-1, all instances of SCP-1762-2 return and fly back into SCP-1762-1. During this time, SCP-1762-1 will once again begin emitting smoke, and instances of SCP-1762-2 will vanish after passing the rim of SCP-1762-1. SCP-1762-1 closes once all SCP-1762-2 have returned to it. The next date of release is inconsistent. A message written or carved into a varying material will sometimes materialize on top of SCP-1762's lid. Once the box retrieves all instances of SCP-1762-2, attempts to send the message or recording device back with SCP-1762-2 have provided negative results. These documents and their appropriate dates of appearance are being compiled and recorded. Addendum 1762-01 on blank blank 20 blank SCP-1762-1 began to undergo a series of events that lasted 11 months and 28 days. These events, as well as prior incidences that led up to the beginning of the scenario, have now been classified under the title the Jabberwocky Event. Oh boy. Okay. Document 1762-1. Date obtained in 2004. This is the first recorded instance of SCP-1762-1 opening while contained at Site blank. You have found us. Thank you. It has been so long since we last saw each other, friends. The peace has been upheld. The giants and behemoths have kept their word and have not caused any trouble since you last came and gave the order. We missed your company. How has your family been? Do you still know how to work your room? You are welcome to visit any time. Document 1762-4. Date obtained in 2004. It's strange to see how much your world has changed. It is even stranger to see how we now appear in this place. In fantasy, you're much bigger. Or maybe you've grown taller? Fantasy is still the same. We hope you can visit us like you used to. Though our room is as grand as ever, it appears yours has shrunken. We do not understand. The rooms are supposed to be maintained, as well as our agreement. Please restore the belief. Document 1762-6. Date obtained 2005. Only 20 instances of SCP-1762-2 appeared. During this event, said instances did not lift off and instead walked slowly on foot for the whole period they were out of SCP-1762-1. Friends, we apologize for our few numbers. We have had to remain in fantasy for quite some time. The others are growing impatient. We are trying to keep the peace, but please, for all of our happiness, repair the room quickly. We know you're trying. Your family is the most imaginative of us all. It seems like I'm making myself tired. Document 1762-14. Date obtained. Blank blank 20 blank. Along with 10 instances of SCP-1762-2 appearing, 3 balls of yellow, crumpled construction paper were expelled from SCP-1762-1. These pieces were observed to shake violently for 5 seconds, then ceased all further movement. They were picked up by SCP-1762-2 and returned to SCP-1762-1. The giants were foolish. Your room was not ready to accept them yet. We're sorry, friends. We hope that we can still see you, but time is growing short for our happiness. Document 1762-15. Date obtained blank blank 20 blank. 5 instances of SCP-1762-2 emerged carrying said document. They immediately returned to SCP-1762-1 after positing it on the floor. Tensions are rising. Fantasy is becoming darker. We, the serpents and the hybrids, are furiously trying to hold them back, but the giants and elves wish to strike and make an entrance. They say that your family has grown stupid and ignorant. We hope this untrue. It would sadden us all greatly to know that you have forgotten. Document 1762-16. Date obtained blank blank 20 blank. A single red instance of SCP-176-2 emerged from SCP-1762-1. Its wings were torn and it was noticeably crumpled. It collapsed onto the floor 1 minute later and did not move again. Upon its expiration, the body of SCP-1762-2 rapidly unfolded and revealed a message written on the inside of the white side of the paper. War. Goodbye, friends. Thank you for the hydrate. And the posture check. And the stretch. Two hours later, SCP-1762-1 opened and emitted flames that reached 2 meters in height and temperatures of 1700 degrees Celsius. Sounds of distant roaring were heard from within SCP-1762-1. At 2000 hours, a large amount of torn paper pieces and paper balls were ejected from SCP-1762-1. Several damaged SCP-1762-2 were also expelled and were deemed deceased upon examination. SCP-1762-1 continued to sporadically open and close for the next 6 weeks. During this time, it continued to emit fire as the amount of paper discharged from it steadily decreased. After resembling muscle and tissue was continuously expelled from SCP-1762-1 at increasing frequency, SCP-1762-1 remained closed and inactive for the next 7 months. Document 1762-17 blank blank 20 blank. This document was discovered lying inside the interior of SCP-1762-1. It was written on parchment and many of the words had been blurred or stained with blood. Are you still out there, friends? We miss you dearly. Fantasy is no longer safe. Our haven, your beautiful creature, is gone. The giants are dead. The centaurs are dead. The birds have fled. We are going to bury your room. We cannot risk hurting you. This is our goodbye. Maybe one day your family can build another room. This may be a hollow hope. Goodbye. Oops. This may be a hollow hope, but we will cherish this thought. 1 hour later, SCP-1762-1 began to shake and emit smoke for 15 minutes. After which... Oh my god.
Undersutsu cry.
I don't know why, but that scared me really bad. I jumped. Thank you for the reset for 8 months. Oh goodness. Oh, oh. Yes, back to stats. Okay, where was I? After which it began to sag and collapse. Several portions of the box began to char and tear, creating small burn holes throughout. The words, "Here be dragons," on the lid of the box were burned away. Document 1762-18. Date obtained. Blank, blank, 20, blank. This is the final message obtained from SCP 1762-1. It was written in ink on a papyrus scroll, and also depicted a scene of a painted mountainous landscape filled with large trees and waterfalls. A single winged dragon can be seen in the background. It appears to be flying away. The message is written in black ink in the bottom right-hand corner. Master says that we won't see you again. We are sad. So are the remaining others. We once filled each other's heads with dreams and goals. It is so sad that we cannot share them any longer. Master says we have to go. He says that he will make us a new fantasy. He says you cannot be a part of it. We are sad. We love you. We will not forget you. We are scared. Will you forget us? Upon removal of document 1762-18, salt water began to leak from SCP-1762-1, and the burn marks that covered the container began to disappear. 3 minutes later, SCP-1762-1 had been restored to its original state. The words, "Here be dragons," were replaced with the words, "Here were dragons." The Jabberwocky event is declared concluded with this occurrence. Addendum 3. Since the end of the Jabberwocky event, SCP-1762-1 has shown no further anomalous properties and has been declared neutralized. SCP-1762-1 and 3 deceased instances of SCP-1762-2 now reside in researcher Yoshihiro Takenaka's office for commemorative purposes. After nearly 8 years of inactivity, researcher Takenaka reported SCP-1762-1 began emitting purple smoke and it spontaneously opened at 2300 hours, falling to the floor. It dislodged a single chunk of crystal, later identified as amethyst, and a large leather-bound book. The contents of this book appear to detail various species that once lived within the world of SCP-1762-2, though, from what the author has written, all organisms mentioned are likely extinct. The book is now classified as 1762-BOL-1. The amethyst crystal had the following words carved into it: "One last time." After falling, SCP-1762-1 continuously emitted smoke for the next 40 minutes before ceasing all activity. Upon trying to pick up SCP-162-1, Takenaka reported that the box proceeded to disintegrate upon touching it. Its remains are now kept in a containment capsule in his office. One can only hope that the dragons will come back one day. I am very sad. I love that SCP. Can we get some F's in the chat for the dragons? F plus, understandable. We sure have a lot more to go, don't we? Truth be told, I'm actually starting to not feel good. So I think we will definitely do another one of these. Perhaps even this week, since I would be cutting this one much earlier than I wanted to. Um, I think there is a relatively short one that I can read now, though. Let me just find it. Oh, here it is. It's okay. Thank you, though. It's because of my eating habits. But here we go. SCP-529. Actually, hold on. So, SCP-529, Object Class, Safe. No special precautions have yet proven necessary. Josie is quite affectionate, and at this stage is free to move about the lower levels of the facility. Staff are not permitted to feed cheese to her. She will become distressed if not given sufficient cheese. Description: SCP-529 is a small house cat, Felis catus, with gray tabby markings. Parts of the animal to the rear of the end of the rib cage appear to be missing. The body terminates sharply, as if sliced in two. In spite of this, the animal has no health problems and moves about as if its hindquarters were still in place. For example, walking takes place as usual, and sometimes after feeding the animal makes motions as if to avoid itself of waste matter. The cross-section does not display the interior of the animal, but appears pure black to the eye, and absorbs all non-visible wavelengths of light. It is slightly yielding to the touch. Gentle stroking of this area sometimes yields a positive reaction, purring and so on, but more usually leads to the creature turning on the agent, claws at the ready. Those scratched have experienced no abnormalities. The hind regions do not appear to be invisible. A cursory examination will show that there are no hindquarters. DNA testing has shown the animal to be female. It is quite too bad that there actually is not more to that SCP. That is cute. We should give head pets to Josie. This one's another short one. SCP-530. Object Class: Safe. Special containment procedures. No special precautions have been proven necessary. Carl is very calm and friendly, and at this stage is free to move around about the lower levels of the facility. Carl is free also to interact with SCP-529, as the two have proven non-hostile towards each other as well. Staff are not permitted to feed SCP-530 anything other than his approved food twice daily or his approved treats during training. Description: SCP-530 appears to be a small dog in a constant state of physical alteration. Height typically varies between 20 centimeters and 30.5 centimeters at the shoulder. Width across the back typically varies between 1.5 centimeters and 18 centimeters. Length typically varies between 25.5 centimeters and 45.5 centimeters. Larger and smaller sizes have been recorded, but are rare and do not last long. The code of SCP-530 is also in a state of constant change. To date, 467 different hues have been recorded, as well as unidentified number of patterns. The most extreme flux comes from the growth or absorption of additional limbs, noses, mouths, eyes, ears, and other body parts. While these typically do not last longer than 24 hours, a third eye located slightly left of center on the top of SCP-530's head has remained since approximately 1/2 hour after its discovery. Addendum 530-203A, Agent Blank fed Carl a slice of deli ham of standard proportions in clear violation of dietary regimen. The resultant odor had been described variously as horrid and plant-withering. Agent Blank has been reprimanded. Robin Hood, thank you very much for the follow, and welcome to the friendly, shark-infested waters. Sadly, there does not seem to be any more short ones. Um, I think that is. I only read 5 today, and there's a lot more to go. Sorry, chat. That will be the end of the SCP ASMR readings for this time around.